They were told to leave. No second chances, no warning. In 2025, during Donald Trump's second term in office, 7 countries were blindsided by one of the most controversial immigration crackdowns in American history. Thousands of immigrants, most of them legal, peaceful, and productive, were ordered out of the United States. Their legal protections were stripped away overnight. Families torn apart, dreams shattered. But why now? Was this just about immigration or something deeper? Let's break it down, country by country, and reveal the hidden costs of Trump's boldest move yet. Number 7. Afghanistan. Afghanistan, a nation that once relied on American promises, suddenly found itself abandoned. In 2025, the Trump administration officially ended Temporary Protected Status, TPS, for over 14,000 Afghan nationals living in the U.S. These were not just refugees. Many were former interpreters, translators, and workers who had directly supported U.S. missions during the war. Some had been promised resettlement. Others had lived in America for years, raising children, building lives, and paying taxes. But with a single policy change, those protections vanished. Worse still, resettlement and aid programs were quietly defunded, leaving no safety net behind. Deportation orders went out, immigration courts were flooded, and the question echoed everywhere. Was this a strategic foreign policy pivot or a cold political decision? Afghan families now face the terrifying possibility of returning to a Taliban-controlled regime. For those who risked everything to help U.S. forces, that return could be deadly. Number 6. Cameroon. Cameroon, a country riddled with political unrest and armed conflict, was next to lose protection. Since 2022, Cameroonian nationals in the U.S. had relied on TPS to stay legally, work, and live in peace. But in June 2025, DHS declared that protection was over, exposing over 7,900 Cameroonians to deportation. That's despite ongoing violence between separatists and government forces in the country's northwest and southwest regions. Entire villages burned, journalists jailed, opposition voices silenced. So why end TPS now? Critics say the decision was political, not humanitarian. Yet in 2025, the Trump administration insisted Cameroon was safe. Even the United Nations warned that deporting Cameroonians at this time could violate human rights. People who had worked as nurses, students, delivery drivers, many who had lived legally in the US for over a decade, were told to leave. 5. South Sudan. Few expected the US to cut ties with South Sudan, one of the most violent and unstable nations on the planet. But in 2025, the administration did just that. The State Department revoked all valid visas and humanitarian protections for South Sudanese nationals, effective immediately. That meant between 4,000 to 6,000 people were ordered to leave the US within 90 days. TPS was ended. Deferred Enforced Departure, DED, was discontinued. Legal relief was gone. And what were they being sent back to? Civil war, tribal violence, famine, and mass displacement. According to the United Nations, 75% of the population in South Sudan needs humanitarian assistance, but the administration declared it safe. Worse, reports emerged that ICE agents targeted South Sudanese communities, detaining people at check-ins, denying legal aid, and even tricking individuals into arrests. In cities like Omaha and Minneapolis, fear spread fast. What happened to compassion? What happened to justice? Number 4. Haiti. The crackdown on Haiti was perhaps the most massive in terms of numbers, and one of the most devastating. In 2025, the Trump administration moved to end legal protections for over 521,000 Haitians who had entered the U.S. under the Biden-era humanitarian parole program. That federal agencies issued notices to appear. No pathway to residency, no extensions. Just the order, leave. Yet even the U.S. State Department calls Haiti a failed state, with armed gangs controlling over 70% of Port-au-Prince, no functioning government, and constant kidnappings, murders, and food insecurity. Many deported Haitians have no homes or families left, and some have already gone missing upon return, likely kidnapped or killed. Human rights groups say the deportations are reckless. Faith leaders call it immoral. Lawyers are working overtime to slow the process, but the clock is ticking. And behind every number is a person, a name America may never remember. Number 3, Nicaragua. In early 2025, the administration abruptly ended the humanitarian parole program for Nicaraguan nationals, stripping legal protections from more than 120,000 people. Why? According to official statements, the program had served its purpose and was terminated to tighten border control. But many Nicaraguans had come legally through that system, with proper vetting, sponsors, and clean records. The real story? Nicaragua remains under the grip of the Ortega dictatorship. Dissenters are jailed. Journalists are silenced. Deportees often face retaliation, arrests, blacklisting, or worse. And yet, deportation orders rolled out across the U.S., particularly in Miami, Houston, and Los Angeles. Community centers were overwhelmed. Families rushed to file asylum applications. Schools were disrupted. Businesses affected. And the question lingers, if we deport people back to brutal regimes, what happens when they can't go home and can't stay here? Number 2, Venezuela. By May 2025, Venezuelans became the largest group impacted by the crackdown. The Supreme Court had greenlit the Trump administration's decision to terminate the Biden-era parole program for Venezuelans. The result? More than 170,000 people lost their legal status in a matter of weeks. They had fled Nicolas Maduro's authoritarian regime and had entered legally, hoping to rebuild their lives. For many, that hope is now gone. Deportation proceedings began. Notices to appear flooded Venezuelan communities in Orlando, Atlanta, and beyond. Families who followed every rule were told to leave. Even worse, many now fear persecution or imprisonment upon return. Some deportees are labeled as traitors. And all this while the U.S. still recognizes Venezuela as a country in crisis. What message does that send? Number 1, the bigger picture. From Afghanistan to Venezuela, the Trump administration's 2025 crackdown affected millions of lives. Not just individuals, but entire families, entire communities. People who came legally. People who were told they were welcome. People who followed the rules. Now they're being sent back to war zones, dictatorships, and collapsed states. Some call it a return to law and order. Others say it's a betrayal of America's values, of trust, fairness, and compassion. What is clear is this: the ground beneath immigrant communities has shifted. Legal status now feels temporary. Protection feels conditional, and fear is growing. So the question remains, was this a crackdown on policy or on people? Only time will tell. But one thing's certain, the consequences are already unfolding. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, hit the like button, share this video, and subscribe for more honest, no-fluff reporting on the biggest issues facing our world today. Because behind every policy is a person, and behind every number, a story that must be heard.